Welcome to Fandom Power.
Why, hello there.
Greetings.
What's up, world? What is up, my friends, my people, my awesome co-host, Hank, Andy,
What's happening?
all the viewers, listeners across the world. This is it. We made it.
We made it.
We have
It was
reached
a long haul, actually.
Reached the end of our journey.
So far.
We've had, well, the end of the journey for now.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
As we've conceded with this season, we've had some ups, we've had some downs. I was a naysayer at the beginning. I had since come around to being fully converted to the show, and now I might be on the fence again.
Your journey is complete.
Maybe. All right, it's the Bad Batch episode 16. This one is called Kamino Lost. As if we didn't know that from last week. Anyway, this one debuted yesterday as of this recording, and that was Friday, August 13th, 2021. All right, this one's got a runtime. It's 25 minutes and 28 seconds without the credits. If you're like me and you shut it off, and then 28:30. So it's actually one of the longest ones with the credits.
Credits were the best part this week.
Yeah, really. Written by Jennifer Corbett, and this one again directed by our good old friend Saul Ruiz. The episode synopsis this week reads as the Bad Batch find themselves in unexpected territory in this thrilling finale, part 2 of 2. I don't know how thrilled.
First thing I gotta say is,
yeah, let's go.
I think it would have been stronger as a 1 hour episode.
Yes.
I think that
at all.
Stuff that was in the first part would have carried through, and we would have still been feeling. So I watch Screen Crush. You guys watch them on YouTube at all? Or he's funny. He makes a reference about your mom in every episode.
Oh, you know what? Every once in a while, I'll catch one of his. Yeah. I know.
So he did a review, a short. He does like 10-minute jobs, right? He did one yesterday, and he actually reviewed both episodes at once. And it made more sense. It actually, hindsight is 2020 or whatever. But
yeah.
And I would think maybe even Disney's hindsight was going to be more introspective too, a lot like Crosshair.
Right.
Because when you view that as an hour, it's probably a lot better animal. And I haven't done that yet, but I actually saying that now, I probably, when we're done here and after I go get some free comic books, it's free comic book day, kids. I'm going to go, I'll probably watch them back to back and see if it has a more sort of a resonance, because we just talked off air about how they repeated a lot of the beats from the last one, which is completely acceptable if you're still in the same movie kind of thing.
They really drove home this idea of conflict and inner turmoil within Crosshair, and kind of, as I was saying earlier, how they kind of wrote him this episode. They kind of wrote him on the fence, like he's made his choice, but at the same time, he's sort of
struggling.
He's definitely conflicted, in the in the Anakin Kylo Ren kind of sense, where, I didn't really feel the criticisms leveled at those two characters were 100% warranted, but now seeing it coming from a third, like Crosshair, I'm like, oh, I understand where that came from now. Yeah, I was just gonna say that knowing what we know now, or at least what we think now, like that again, going back to the redemption is a big thing in Star Wars, and I've come around to the idea that they probably are working to redeem him in the traditional Star Wars sense, but like we said last week, this is a long game. It's not going to happen overnight. You don't get to go and murder women and children and do all those things and then get welcomed back with open arms like nothing happened. So
yeah.
But I found this episode was like I just like, make a choice. Either make him evil or make him, like, I get it, you need to have that conflict to have development and growth, but it's like if you keep writing him like that, where he says something that's like overtly evil and then immediately goes into this, but I feel bad about it, you might lose. Like, I'm going to lose interest in that, because it's just, that tension only works. You can only carry it so far before it's like, it just becomes annoying.
Yeah. Like Lauren and I were talking to, it's a little bit, he's written a little bit like Maul or Asajj Ventress. He's almost got this like dark side Sith apprentice approach to, here's my past life, and I have some sort of attachment to it, and Sith aren't necessarily adverse to attachment, but I've got this attachment to my past life. But at the same time, you hear him talk about the Empire, not in terms of like, he branches off from I'm a soldier, and that's his through line to the group. We're soldiers.
Yeah.
He keeps talking about personal glory. And so that's interesting.
Yeah.
He keeps talking about the Empire is going to take over the galaxy, and I'm going to be a part of that. There's a slice of that in there for me, and the way you're going about getting your personal slice of the galaxy is bullshit as far as I'm concerned.
It's the wrong way.
That's a pretty cool. Like, I enjoyed that part of his character, like, because there's, we all saw the scar on his head, and I've heard people talking like, well, there's no scar from his chip removal, and then I'm like,
it doesn't have to be.
Where does? But there is. I mean, there's this huge.
There's massive scarring,
right? And and they're all arguing semantics. I think it's on Reddit about the location of the. And I'm like, now that's maybe even a more interesting conversation than the whole episode. But I find it clearly, and I also don't think he's lying at all. I don't think he's lying at all. That's another thing about bad guys.
People say there's no scar. They must be referring to the surgical scar, and like, really,
I guess like Rex's, right?
But you don't need, the episode works whether you take the chip out or the season. That character arc works whether you remove the chip or not, just because of the ion radiation. You could have left that thing in there and just said it's inert, and it's completely believable. But sure. I mean, why? I have every confidence that it was removed through the burn scars. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
And it could be possible right now that he's been brainwashed into thinking that he has no chip, and then
maybe he still does.
This is of his own volition, and maybe somewhere down the line they'll have an unconscious crosshair over their shoulder again and scan him and go, "Oh shit, he actually has a functioning chip." Remove it, and he goes, "Sorry, guys."
Yeah, really.
It's there's another neat kind of maybe.
I guess so. Yeah. That definitely would be a jaw dropper for me.
Well, and because they were experimenting on the chip, and we got that very briefly, and then we branched right off into the whole let's go work for bounty hunters and stuff. But they were tinkering with the chip. I don't think they were removing it. They were trying to augment it in some way.
That's right. Yeah, reinforce and amplify. Yeah.
But perhaps that stuff was them mucking with his brain in a whole other fashion.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best part about space opera and fiction in general, is that it can go any way,
right,
at any time, and for us as the viewers, let's just strap in and hang on for the ride.
I'm trying to squeeze some lemonade out of this episode, man. I'm trying.
Well,
all right.
It's funny that you say that he's seeking accolades now, because after I watched this, I went back and I did watch the 4-hour episode arc from the Clone Wars.
Cool.
And there's actually a line in there where they're like, you guys are going to get medals for this, and they're like, no, we're not in it for medals.
Oh, interesting.
So there are some parallels between that arc and this part.
Cool. I think
that do come up.
The analogy of the Brotherhood, as in, like, we kind of joked about it, keeping the band together, or the band just got back together after a big breakup. It really does resonate, especially later on in this episode when they get back to the quarters and they're sort of looking at the mission board etched in the wall, and Crosshair with his line about all those missions together and you threw it away.
Yeah, no, yeah, he's bitter too. Like,
yeah,
and
it's like a jilted ex-lover.
I don't know. You were saying your notes are loose today, so I was something just popped into my head that's in the episode. But I found the choice to put Hunter and Crosshair in the same tube during the escape instead of Hunter with Omega and Crosshair by himself very interesting. Yeah. And I guess it's just to set up the rescue, right?
I guess so. I kind of wondered, though, if it was, this was a direct poke at the leadership thing, right? Because, I mean, as a leader, Hunter doesn't want to put the rest of his brothers in danger. So it makes sense for him, I'll keep Crosshair with me because if something happens, you guys have a better chance of taking care of it or me or the situation.
I agree with that from a soldier standpoint, but what I find it out of character for Hunter that we've seen for these 15 episodes,
right?
He's not with Omega.
That's true too. I found myself
just got her back. Just got her back.
Yeah.
Right.
When they pull her out of the drink per se, and she's crouched down in the bottom of the canoe tube with them, and to me again, it's kind of dark. But does she not like lean in and like really prolongedly hug him at the waist?
Yeah.
Kind of deal. Yeah. So I mean that whole. It's almost maybe it's me and it's because I'm an adult, but sometimes I find that aspect of the relationship is almost creepy, especially now that she's come right out and referred to them as a brother, but she still treats him like a father.
Yeah.
And I know that, siblings.
There's a lot. Yeah, it's very complex because then she has this overall mothering. And then there was one line, there was actually a line from her in this that I was like, does she not remember the last 15 episodes like I do? Because she gets cut off from the group and she says, Hunter, I'm trapped. Echo, Tech.
Anybody. Yeah.
Wrecker? Why is Wrecker last? Why isn't her Mantel mix buddy that they've been romping her, her best buddy? Why isn't he first? I was just like, that seems out of character for Omega. Anyway, semantics.
Do you think so? Like, let's just stick with that for a second, because earlier in the episode, wow, we're really off format today, but hey, do you think it's because she was privy to the conversation that they'd had below about Wrecker being angry with him and the line, Crosshair, something on your small mind, Wrecker, and he goes off. He's like, all those things, all that time, and you never even tried to come back. And then his tone completely softens, and it's almost sorrowful when he says, we would have taken you back. Yeah. You think that kind of, if you're a little kid, and I mean, I've struggled with personal relationships in my life, and I never wanted to be second best. If I was wanting to do something with my friends and I got, maybe, and then they went and did something else with another one of our friends.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to understand that I wasn't good enough. And so I could see from where a young child, an adolescent like Omega would hear something like that, and suddenly she's not the best friend anymore.
I mean, that's entirely possible. She has been the sort of trumpet of like, we'll take him back no matter what, though.
She has been, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's probably nuanced. I would think that would have a small amount to do with it, and it's certainly if it's written that way. Kudos to the writers.
Yeah. All right, you want to get into the episode?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. No problem. I love the conversation. I love where it goes, and like the season has been unpredictable.
You can't chain us.
All right, the episode opens with a shot of Admiral Rampart standing on the bridge of his Star Destroyer. The familiar sound of that Imperial klaxon can be heard ringing as a trio of ships pound Tapoka City with their turbo laser cannons. All right.
It's very Tarkin-esque, very Vader-esque. Very, very sort of stock Imperial officer or high command guy. It's a nice shot. It remains a nice shot. And if we talk about legacy lines, this is a legacy
visual.
Yeah. That's totally true. The little thing about I'm going to get to it in a minute but I'll maybe talk about it now. Last week we questioned about, did we think do you think is there like 6 Star Destroyers? And there's a line from Rampart afterwards when the city's done, and he's like, okay, rejoin the fleet. And I'm thinking, maybe there were 3 in orbit and 3 in atmosphere. And they were just kind of running around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There could have been, at the end, was there 6 pulling away?
There isn't. You just see the 3 pulling away from the atmosphere. But I
sort of got the impression that there might have been 3 per city.
That even might be something too. Yeah.
Again, we're skipping around, but when they're floating on the water towards the very end, just before they get to the, you can see Tapoka City in the it's the background, but it's the forward background, and there's another city off in the distance.
Funny you should say that. Yeah,
man.
Okay, man. Like there is a line where he says all the cities are underwater.
Right. That is true.
Yeah,
that's
like, how many cities were on? How many were on Kamino?
Right.
So
population of 1 billion according to Wikipedia. So
right. So safe to say that there probably were more than 3. So like 6 might even be a conservative estimate.
Mm.
All right. So meanwhile, in the city below, the Bad Batch frantically search for any bastion of safety. The corridor around them is collapsing, and it's all they can do to avoid the falling debris. And that's a shot of Tapoka City, well inflamed.
It looks like smog from Lord of the Rings.
A little bit.
Funny, I just watched that last night.
Blur your eyes.
Still hiding in the gold pile.
Yeah.
All right. Unrelenting, the Star Destroyers continue their barrage on the city. An explosion rings out, knocking the clones to the floor. But as they try to gather themselves, the damaged stilts collapse under the enormous weight of the city, and the entire structure lists to one side while the group begins to slide down the corridor.
They're so good at physics. They're so good at physics now. Like we're watching a cartoon, and you got to think even back when they were doing CGI movies that had big, scenes like this, like and everything was clunky and this hard to see. I'll grant it, but the physics, it actually is beautiful. Watch on big TV, turn the brightness way up, and turn all the lights off.
I'm going to burst that bubble a little bit. There's a couple of parts where like you talk about physics, like real world physics. And I kind of went, it was passable when they were trying to wedge the door open to get her out. But the amount of pressure on the door from the water, it's probably not possible. And more so to her popping the door off her tube underwater, under several meters of water. Mm-hmm. Like you'd be near, like without some sort of,
it would have to be something like explosive. Absolutely.
Yeah. Just not possible. Sorry,
I was just referring to sort of the physics of the thing collapsing.
That aspect of it looked great. I said to Andy yesterday, I was watching it, like, again, like the palette, this is the worst palette, this episode is the worst palette of the entire season. It's really difficult to see, but the stuff that you can see, the stuff that's brighter, like how hot was that fire that even submerged underwater parts of the city were still like glowing red hot. Yeah.
No, that's perfect. And to devil's advocate, I guess, being the darkest episode of the season, thematically, I would have preferred to seen, maybe 10% more, but it does fit, especially with what happens at the very end, which is strange to me. We'll talk about that at the very end.
Mm-hmm. So with Tapoka City in the throes of death, the few remaining systems carry out their final processes, including the sealing of automated bulkheads. And we get a shot here of Omega's on sort of one side of the corridor, and Hunter's kind of laying there looking back at her as the door slams shut.
The Titanic is going down.
Yeah, very much so. On opposite sides of a doorway, a nervous Omega stares at Hunter under the light of her torch as the bulkhead slams shut, separating them. Meanwhile, back on the bridge of the Star Destroyer, a clone trooper reports to Admiral Rampart that all the facilities at Tapoka City have fallen into the sea.
Does he not say all the cities on Kamino have fallen into the sea, though?
I think on this, don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure that's the line is all facilities.
Fair enough.
So there he is giving this, this report to Rampart. And I find this part really interesting. So again, talking about the nuance of the show, this clone trooper, did you catch the cadence in his voice, how it was kind of broken? And he was like, he was upset about what was happening.
He's like, why are we doing this?
Right.
Also, the entire bridge crew of clones still.
They are still, yep.
Yeah. And I find it very, also a lot more clones at the end too.
Yes. Very specific clones at the end. Mm-hmm. Satisfied with the outcome of the barrage, Admiral Rampart gives the order for the 3 Star Destroyers to rendezvous with the rest of the fleet. And as we just discussed, there must have been more than 3 ships there to take out an entire planet. Right. A fleet is, assumedly. I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, not Rise of Skywalker fleet or anything, but I mean,
an Independence Day size
fleet. Armada plus. I mean,
an Independence Day fleet.
Yeah.
Where they just go city to city to city.
I guess.
Annihilate and move on.
You think that would give a spacefaring race time to get off world? But maybe the object is to destroy the infrastructure.
I guess so, yeah.
Because there is a severe lack of Kaminoan bodies in this.
That's true. That's like super, super true, yeah.
Mm.
Apparently, the Empire in the early days were self-cleaning.
Apparently.
All right.
Thought I might have saw a couple floating in the water, but then I
thought, really?
Probably dark. Like, I mean, not, thematically, it's probably
yeah. In a sealed compartment in the city below, the droid AZ-3 reboots his systems and begins to survey his immediate surroundings. He, along with Omega and Crosshair, are on one side of the sealed bulkhead, and the compartment is filling with water. Still unconscious from being stunned, Crosshair is trapped under a large piece of debris. There he is, kind of nestled in under there. And I actually thought for a second, oh, he's dead. And I thought, no, that's just too easy to kill him off this early in the episode.
Yeah. Well, this is his bookend moment. This is the front end of his and
that's right.
Omega's book.
Yeah, this is the tit for tat. This would be the. Is this the tit or the tat?
I don't know.
Is that say something dirty?
Maybe, but tit comes first.
Right.
She's a child.
Yeah. So Omega tries to lift the debris off of Crosshair, but it's just too heavy. So pulling out her comlink, she desperately calls out to the Batch, telling them that the compartment is flooded and Crosshair is trapped. Hunter orders Tech to get the door open. But with the damage to the city and power wildly fluctuating, he informs him that he can't do it from here. But that doesn't stop Wrecker, who dashes forward exclaiming, "I can," as he drives his vibro knife like a wedge between the door panels and begins to lever them open. Meanwhile, in the flooded compartment, the water level continues to rise until only Crosshair's head remains above the surface. Omega then dives beneath the surface, trying to pull the debris off of Crosshair, but it won't budge. And she gives it an honest effort. I mean, she does a lot in this episode underwater, by the way. Just want to
super brave.
Yeah.
You know what? It makes you wonder how Kaminoan is she?
Well, she's used to a water planet.
But she's used to a water planet, certainly. She can swim. It's not like she can't swim.
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah.
Returning to the surface, Omega sees Crosshair struggling to keep his head above water. With time running out, she orders AZ-3 to try and lift the debris using his boosters while she blasts it with her energy bow.
That's
and
nice.
it took me a while to get that one, but she puts like 2 or 3 rounds into it. 2 actually, with 2 well-placed shots. Omega slices the debris in half, and that's enough for AZ to free Crosshair. Once again, Omega dives beneath the water and pulls him back to the surface. So this is a perfect example of
super dark.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Funny that screen cap got the play button in there.
Oops.
It might be the only one.
One of the other ones had a little at the top, press escape to exit full screen.
Oh,
Yeah, whatever,
I guess it
man.
depends how fast I was on the buttons.
Yeah.
All good, baby.
But there's a thing here where once she's pulled him above water, he kind of throws her off. Like,
He does.
Now he's now. Well, of course he's gagging like.
yeah.
Perhaps now I just thought something just hit me. You know how you're saying he's this, but he's veering very rapidly back and forth through that. Maybe his chip is malfunctioning. Like maybe he's going good guy, bad guy, good guy, bad guy, because he's having like
it could kind
of psychotic, because you rescued me, get off me, thank you,
right.
Yeah. I hate you. Maybe there's something deeper going on there. Maybe he's got some serious brain damage.
Well, like you talk about, the colloquialism, like, oh, you really must hate yourself. That could like genuinely apply to this guy.
Yeah,
like he really does hate himself. Yeah.
Yeah, most people.
He's definitely got enough head trauma to.
Well,
brain damage.
Yeah. And you got to think like, and they don't really address it. They sort of started to address it with Echo at the beginning of the season, but all these guys must have incredible amounts of battle fatigue and PTSD and all these other things like that would affect you mentally. The other characters seem to be wearing it better, but Crosshair certainly doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, there's this whole thing about resilience, right? And quite literally, glass half empty, glass half full kind of thing. And how important it is in the course of human development, this whole nature versus nurture thing. I mean, the more See, mental resilience is just not something that's taught, but it can be. It can be, and the problem is a lot of people who suffer with stuff like post-traumatic stress and other stress injuries is that their resilience just isn't there, and it's not their fault. But it's interesting how these four guys can't include Echo because he wasn't originally part of the
four.
So these four guys who have ostensibly lived their entire lives together in close quarters, they've had all these shared experience, how these four guys, these clones, so genetically speaking, they're the same roadmap, how each one of those, even though they've had similar experiences, how they're mentally processing it, that it's still, as much as they're clones, they're still individuals, right? All right. With the compartment almost completely flooded, Omega turns her attention back to the sealed door. With Wrecker's vibroblade stuck between the door panels, she's able to get a finger hold on the door, and she pulls hard, trying to slide it open. On the other side, Wrecker and Tech continue to pull at the door until water finally begins to seep through, and eventually they're able to open it enough that Omega, AZ3, and Crosshair slide through, spilling onto the floor.
And Wrecker catches Omega when she pops out. You notice that? It's really dark. He one hands her like a hockey goalie.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, you can actually kind of see it a little there. Yeah, Wrecker catches her.
So Crosshair gets to his feet, and the Bad Batch are finally reunited.
So just before we go any further, though, this is one of your physics points.
Right.
But I'm going to say this is a mirroring again of that original 4-episode arc.
In which sense?
In that when we first meet Wrecker, he's lifting a ship.
Oh, yeah. That's right. He flips a whole gunship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it that far of a stretch to open a water pressured door?
Again, we've talked about this guy. Like, how strong is he? So, it's certainly not beyond the realm of possibility. I don't know.
Because you look at it, normal level strength.
Yeah.
And his little sister, Adrenaline Rush,
is
in danger.
I got to give you that. You can't argue with that.
And perhaps the physics of it, if you wanted to crack it down, is once you crack that, you're going to release some water pressure. You're actually releasing it slowly by cracking it. So maybe you're going to hit a tipping point where water pressure. Ostensibly, it's not the entire pressure of the ocean in that room.
No. I mean, we still have partially sealed.
What's wrong with you guys?
Partially.
That's funny.
Okay,
yeah, I mean, perhaps as the pressure eases, perhaps then boom, there's a flood point.
Sure, that explosive decompression almost.
Yeah,
right.
But I'm thinking if you're gonna get that, I mean, why didn't they just blow the doors right off? But then again, now I'm mixing my space fantasy with real physics here, and it just doesn't work. Well, we're talking about a universe with laser swords,
and at the end, they managed to push the doors closed again. Too.
Yeah, I know.
Right, so.
All credibility went out the door with space wizards and laser swords.
Well, to go against space physics there, you don't want to blow the door open. That place is unstable.
No, that's what I mean.
Suspend your disbelief.
Oh man, we could have a whole show on space wizards and Star Wars physics.
Space wizard physics.
Yeah.
Oh boy, sorry, we're really getting off the
over a TIE fighter.
All right. Tech interjects that what is left of the city is sinking, and they don't have time for this. Oh, sorry, I just skipped a whole line. Sorry, this is like majorly important stuff. Crosshair gets to his feet, and the Bad Batch are reunited. With disdain in his voice, Crosshair asks Hunter, "What have you done?" And he tells him that, Hunter tells him it's the Empire that's destroyed the city, and they weren't going to leave him behind. But Tech interjects that what's left of the city is sinking, and they don't have time for this. Right. They need to get to the surface. So this is a kind of a cool point, because this is sort of the I was thinking that there wasn't much action in the episode. There was still, because we were talking about, are we going to get a land battle, a space battle? Well, we did get a battle of sorts. We got the verbal assault, and this is the opening salvo between these two characters. And the battle will continue as we go along.
It's the first time I seriously noticed that Tech doesn't use contractions.
Oh, really?
I never noticed it before, but now, I mean, Echo is the sort of physical droid.
Yep.
Without Echo there, Tech is the droid of the crew. And I didn't notice that he doesn't use contractions a lot like C-3PO.
Right.
Will not won't, and can't.
Right.
It's kind of neat.
So before turning away, Hunter says to Crosshair, if you want to stay here and die, that's your call. And then he and the rest of the batch run off in search of a way out. Pausing for just a moment to consider his options, Crosshair realizes that his best chance for survival is to stay with his brothers. So he runs off to catch up. Moving through the corridors of Tapoka City, Omega pauses to look down at one of the cloning chambers. Slowly, the rings of cloning pods are destroyed as the water level rises, consuming them. And, familiar shot here. We've seen these rooms before. But last week we saw the contrasting shot, Andy, of what it was like in the heyday with cloners running around. Every tube was full against that image of they're empty. But man, you can see the water level rising there, and the pods almost like you ever like smashed a light bulb on purpose?
A little bit.
You know how they kind of you kind of get that same sort of effect here. Yeah.
There's something else going on here, and now that I'm looking at that screenshot, sorry for the people not watching visuals, good. But there's power to those units in a station where the power is out.
Yeah, the whole power thing is a bit of a conundrum because
they got backups to keep. So if this ever did happen, because you got to figure on a world full of electrical storms, the power is going to go out once in a while.
You would think
some kind of crazy generator backup going on there.
Yeah,
because all 5 of those 6, there's one in the foreground, are lit up, and then as they hit the water, there's an electrical explosion,
like a short.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting. The whole power thing is a bit of a conundrum though, because in certain places there is, and then there isn't, and then they restore some, but it's temporary, and then
power was a plot device in this episode.
Yeah, it really was, especially when you see like the we've seen them before, like in the Millennium Falcon, the top hatch, how that the irising hatch, and it's like, wait, there's no power, but that thing just like nobody's underneath that cranking that thing open.
A wheel.
Right. All right. Omega seems lost in sorrow until Wrecker lifts his helmet up to look down at her, and he gently tells her, "We have to go." And it's a bit of a tender moment here, for him to sort of do that for her. Still being the big brother.
Oh yeah.
The way that they treat her in this episode, like, kind of kid gloves, like, I think there's that sense of like, because this is her home more than any of them, right? I mean, sure, they were based out of here, but I mean, they see it through the eyes of an adult, and she's still seeing it through the eyes of a child.
Yeah.
I also think that they've got more sort of galactic experience. You're
absolutely
a lot less likely to miss your home, and I mean, like, not you're going to pine for it.
Yeah,
you're a lot less likely to be super attached to the place you were born if you've been 1,000 other places on the entire planet or galaxy. If you've had this breadth of experience, perhaps you long to return there once in a while, but it wouldn't be this like that's the only thing I've ever known, which is why there's this crazy amount of culture shock when she goes and sees the first time she landed on a planet that wasn't covered in water, there was the look on her face, right?
I think it's a nice contrast up against some of the stuff we talked about last week, or maybe it was the week before. But Hank, you had mentioned like maybe, it was last week because we were at Nalasay's lab, and you'd hypothesized maybe there did some bad things to her there, but like her emotional reaction to the death of the city, if I can call it that, is very much like sad.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree.
Yeah. All right, taking up flight once again, the Bad Batch push forward across a long gangway that spans the entire cloning lab that Omega was just looking at.
Okay, so Easter egg here. Did you guys notice that's the gangway that Obi-Wan and Taun Wei walked down?
Oh, I didn't
serving the clones for the very first time.
I didn't.
Sir. Yes,
okay,
sir.
That's really good. Man, I call myself a fan. I need to go back and rewatch this stuff. All right, as the city finally dips down below the ocean surface on its long descent to the bottom, the gangway begins to crack, and the entire city itself lists to one side again, and the Bad Batch are once again forced into an uncontrollable slide. Debris rains down from above, and it's all anyone can do to grab hold of anything to keep from falling. Hard to see here, but there's everybody sort of like, make or break, grab onto anything that they can hold on to.
A lot of torn shoulders in the group today.
Andy, you thought it reminded you of
this vertical falling scene kind of reminds me of falling when the Rexes push the buses off in the Lost World.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All I could hear was Jeff Goldblum screaming, "Hang on to something!"
Hang on to something.
Him and Vince Vaughn.
Yes.
All right. In the ensuing chaos, both AZ3 and Hunter fall, but AZ is caught by Omega, and Hunter manages to grab one of Crosshair's legs. After what seems like a few seconds, Topoka City finally strikes the ocean floor, coming to rest horizontally on the bottom, and the Bad Batch are able to get their footing. All right. Collecting themselves after the impact, Tech presumes that they are, in fact, on the ocean floor, and there's no accurate way to estimate the damage. At the same time, more water begins to find its way in, and the clones know that if they are to survive, they have to find a more structurally sound compartment. So there's one thing that this episode does really well, and Andy, you kind of made the joke about the Titanic going down, and it's true. Like Titanic or the Poseidon Adventure, they really do a good job of keeping the tension up. That
certainly. Yeah.
The environment itself is an adversary in this episode, right?
Yeah.
We may not be fighting
there's
each
no
other.
time for them to breathe. Yeah, I will.
No, there isn't. Yeah. With a follow me, Tech and the Batch head off, leaving Omega staring at Crosshair. This my man Tech has his leadership moment. Follow me.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of him for this.
He knows where to go.
That's right.
I do need that Tech action figure. I've been hunting that down.
I need them all. All right, so the two exchange solemn glances until Omega runs off with the rest of the group, leaving Crosshair alone. And interesting how there was a part of this scene where I had to get it. There was a lot of, again, sort of exposition stuff going on here, and talk about the nuance, right? This is sort of the two of them kind of eyeballing each other, but they kind of gave it to us from both angles. And so here we have a shot of, from one angle, and the expression of these characters, right? But then look at this, right?
Yeah.
You just don't know where. Yeah.
And I don't even think it's disdain for her. I think it's disdain for the thoughts in his head.
Right.
Like that he feels like obligated to protect her on some wholly other inside place.
Well, you kind of nailed it when you say like alone with his thoughts, because that's exactly what I said. For the second time this episode, Crosshair is left alone with his thoughts, and we don't really know what he's thinking. But I mean, by the end of the episode, like that whole clearly it's more conflicted. I don't know how I feel about this.
He's been told now that the Empire fired on them with him still in there. So
every single time he gives the character that he's, even when the tech line that's coming up and the wrecker line, even too, when he gives that hard look to the character, he turns away and he softens internally. They make a point of his face going, neutral or even.
There's almost it's almost like. Again, it's that I hate myself. It's that shame. Like, I
have
an emotional outburst and then immediately feel shameful about it. It's a really tough place to be in.
And it's actually a lot of abusers do that to create shame in the people they're abusing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm sorry. I love you.
Can somebody actually gaslight themselves?
Maybe.
I mean, we can. There's an old saying, I can't remember what the quote is, but I used to write it on a poster and put it on all my apartment walls. I haven't done it in years because I'm in a better place now. But it always said, beware yourself is trying to trick yourself.
Oh, it's true though. It's totally true. So just like the last time, he pauses for a moment and then runs off to catch the group. So in a twist of irony, the Bad Batch find themselves in one of the few undamaged compartments left in the city, and that just happens to be their former barracks. So it's kind of cool that Wrecker revels at the sight of their old mission board still etched into the wall. But as Crosshair reflects on it, he once again launches into a verbal assault against Hunter. All those missions together, and you threw it away.
No, and exactly like what you said before, like the band getting back together. We had all these
Yeah,
references. We used to sell out shows everywhere, and you guys, from his perspective, you guys are the ones that crapped on that. So he still remembers it fondly.
Right. So Hunter retorts that they made a choice, and then he sort of punctuates that by saying, "And so did you." And like a broken record, Crosshair fires back with "Soldiers follow orders."
But he doesn't say good soldiers.
No, he doesn't. Just soldiers. Yeah.
That's important that he drops that too. Yeah.
But Hunter fires right back with, "And blind allegiance makes you a pawn." Followed by "A real leader protects his squad."
Right. Taking a shot at his former attempts to usurp the leadership of the group,
Yeah. Seething with disdain, Crosshair remarks, "Look where that's gotten you." He then glances around the rest of the room, adding that they're all going to die because of your failed leadership. And this is something that we've talked about, particularly in the last couple of episodes since Crosshair sort of turned up again, is that these guys are like two sides of the same coin, like the whole jockeying for a position or vying for the leadership role. But I couldn't help but notice that, over the course of the season, like where I say like the opposite side of the coin, how many times have we seen Hunter go to like extraordinary lengths to save someone, to protect, to make sure that they're okay?
That's right.
And then you flip that around, and then there's Crosshair who's murdering his own people
on his first mission.
You know what I mean? Like
you can forget easily that the idea of clones was just a dropped mention in A New Hope in a conversation between Luke and Obi-Wan, and then you sort of can even forget that Attack of the Clones had that genesis, and then you could forget that Revenge of the Sith had, all the clone, like just armies of clones, and you could almost even, because so much time has passed, I don't mean we forget it, but the idea that there is a huge clone war, and we watched the 8 or 7 seasons of the show, and that the through lines carry through to Rebels, and you're talking about 2008 with that beginning, so you're talking about 13, 14, 15 years since. It's easy to remember that, or forget that these aren't all the same person. And that it's the divergence in the little mini divergence. It's really, to watch these people be individuals for 13 years. It's easy to forget that they're ostensibly all the same guy.
Right. Man, it's what's that movie that we talked about it before, the Shyamalan movie with all the multiple personalities?
Oh, Split.
Yeah. James McAvoy. And now they're all they're all each personality is disembodied in its own. So all right, so again, he's like, they're all going to die because of your failed leadership. But from the other side of the room, you get this "No, we're not," as Omega, standing in front of a giant window, points out that the city has actually come to rest on top of the secret tunnel that leads back to Nala Se's private lab. And that means they can use it to get back to the Havoc Marauder.
You guys, Avatar fans, Last Airbender fans, secret tunnel, secret tunnel. Anyway,
I still have to finish watching that, and I probably should. I mean, as Filoni worked on that,
man, it's good.
Tech posits that accessing the tunnel will be challenging, but Echo insists that it's better than staying here. While Crosshair snides derisively, "She's calling the shots now." And just again, this whole back and forth, I'm an asshole, but I'm conflicted about it. I'm ashamed of myself, but I'm gonna lash out. It just this is where you really get that sense of, I don't know if I like how he's being written.
Yeah, Tech sort of nails it on the head real quick soon.
So making their way through the barracks, the Bad Batch finally find a suitable spot to attempt to cut through the floor and access the tunnel. And we kind of get a shot here of AZ with his little welder. God bless his little droid soul. I mean, for someone who started off as a comic relief character, he sure does get some heavy-duty spotlight this episode.
Yeah, he's the hero of the episode.
Absolutely.
In a bunch of ways. actually.
Glad to see that they've kept him, like even though he's depowered at the end of the episode, but Wrecker's kind of cradling him, and not in a this is a broken piece of technology. It's like literally cradling a baby with his head up.
Something I never noticed after like even 5 or 10 episode. They show him really, really well in this episode. He's got C-3PO's eyes.
Yeah, I picked up on that too. And almost so the other thing too is, did you get the Princess Leia bun kind of thing going on with the sides of his head?
A little bit, I did, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so Tech informs the group that with a precise weld to maintain an airtight seal, it might work. So having successfully cut through the floor into the tunnel below, AZ floats down to investigate. And after a short recon, he comes back to the hole, and he kind of looks up at everybody and gives the all clear. The Bad Batch begin to make their way through the tunnel in single file. Crosshair brings up the rear, and pausing to look up, he sees a crack in the glass, and it's getting larger. So there's the crack in the glass. Crosshair asserts that they should go back. There has to be another way. But AZ3 says that is unwise, reasserting that the tunnel is still their best option. Angrily, Wrecker asks Crosshair if he's done complaining, adding if it weren't for him, they wouldn't be in this situation in the first place. And like a true bully, Crosshair retorts, "Something on your small mind, Wrecker?" Still angry, Wrecker exclaims, "All that time, you didn't even try to come back." And, we talked about this just a few minutes ago, and then immediately has this like tonal change, and he's like, in this forlorn way, he's kind of he doesn't even look at Crosshair, can't even look him in the eye. He stares at the floor and says, "We still would have taken you."
There's an unwritten flip side to this, though.
Yeah.
They never once went after him. They went after Hunter.
That is true.
They went after Tech. They went after a clone they didn't know. They went after Omega twice.
Yeah.
And none of those were for money. They went after a lot of things for money too. They never, that's the flip side of that conversation, is maybe that's why actually Wrecker looks at the floor, is because we would have taken you back, but they never lifted a finger to try to rescue Crosshair.
No, I suppose that is true. Yeah. And that has to be playing on his mind.
That's, yeah.
So at this point, Tech interjects, telling Wrecker, "Let it go," adding that Crosshair has always been severe and unyielding, that it's in his nature, and neither Wrecker nor Crosshair can change that.
So, and I think that's also a kidney punch to Crosshair.
Yeah.
He's got that kind of A-type personality. Don't tell me what I can't do. And you might find a little snide comment like that, or not even snide, a perfectly honest, accurate comment like that might cause him to introspect even more.
I think that coming from anybody else, it wouldn't have the same weight, but because Tech is so literal in everything he says, to Tech, he's just being analytical in what he says, but
that's right.
Maybe doesn't understand that it's having this emotional, like you say, gut punch.
And he's also, from Crosshair's respect, Tech is never wrong, very rarely wrong.
That's right, yeah.
And he's analyzed what he's about to say from all the angles. Like, it's a very precise answer, and I think that is like you say, like a gut punch to
the other
punch to his head.
Yeah, the other part for this for Tech, and it's sort of Andy, we talked about this yesterday when you came in to visit when I was writing the notes, and we talked about this scene specifically. And so at this point, Crosshair says, "Why are you defending me?" And Tech bluntly tells him, "I am not. Understanding you does not mean I agree with you." And we both kind of agreed that, this was as close as we were going to get
to an emotional
with Tech. To basically to throw a metaphorical FU out there, which is kind of what that is.
Right.
So in a way, I think Tech was kind of going for a gut punch there. Like,
you think he was intentionally trying to rile him?
Well, or at least put him in his place.
I think so too. Again, it's that whole
his personality is also like he's got no filter, like we've talked about.
No, he does not.
And so a person without a filter doesn't consider the how what I'm about to say is going to make that other person feel.
Right.
So
right.
it's, it's 50-50 for me. It's 50-50 whether
sure.
it was on purpose. But I think that regardless of whether he did it on purpose or whether he didn't, that it is an emotional gut punch to Crosshair. I think it's going to weigh if the writers, take the ball and run with it. That's part of what's going to weigh on him, is them all individually approaching him and going, this is how it hurt me.
Yeah.
But we can't forget, though. We got to harp on it again. We can't forget that they abandoned him as much as he abandoned them.
No, you're absolutely right. And I mean, that's a kind of baggage that hangs on for years, like abandonment issues.
And I said it last episode, the difference being they all had each other and he had
and he had himself. Yeah.
Right. So I actually sympathize a little with the jerk.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if everybody kind of gets it to the same level, though. Like, I mean, the casual viewer may not pick up on that, but certainly
we're here.
Well, one more reason to listen to our show.
Well, here's one more point for you. He didn't have sweet fuck all. He thought he had the Empire.
Yes.
To lean into his military, to his missions, and continue on that way. But I'm thinking going forward, he's going to find out that wasn't there at all.
You bring up a good point too, Andy, because we've talked about the, last week we talked about the Brotherhood and Crosshair trying to convert the Bad Batch over, like, come with me and sort of get the band back together. But as you say, he had the Empire, and even his dialogue suggests he's not necessarily, yes, he has the Empire, but it's more he has the ideology. And I think he's trying to convince himself that is their ideology is his ideology.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. And that's why he's trying to say, I could stake a personal claim in the galaxy.
Yeah. Right.
Because that's their ideology.
So as the batch continues down the tunnel, Omega surveys her surroundings by the light of her torch. Seeing several cracks in the glass, she asserts to AZ that this can't be safe. But AZ reassures her that barring any further complications, the tunnel is a viable means of transportation. At this point, Hunter pipes up and says, let's keep moving. Which I just have to interject here for a second. That is such a typical leadership thing to do, because idle minds make for horrible people, right? Like if your troops are suffering, you want to keep them motivated and you want to keep them on task. And I think that's exactly, from a military perspective, that's what he's doing here. Let's keep moving, because that's the task at hand.
Yeah, it happens all the time at work. You got to just keep people. Yep. Don't worry about the small things. Let's concentrate on this big thing.
That's right. Yeah. So a short distance down the tunnel, the group stops because of an ominous sound outside, and I just love this shot of everybody's with their flashlights looking.
That's another kind of Jurassic Park looking scene too.
Andy, what did you say? Reminiscent of the Meg?
Yes,
the Meg.
Oh yeah.
Staring at the window. What's going on out there?
Kind of half.
Turn your lights off, kids.
Yeah. At this point, Hunter exclaims, "I think we've got a problem." Omega nervously asks AZ3 if the tunnels are protected, and the little droid replies, "Only when the power is operational," which it is not. Suddenly, a giant sea creature charges the tunnel. You don't get a really good look at it here. I did my best to sort of get what it was. You get this sort of
Godzilla beast sort of vibes the first time I watched it, because I watched it on my phone like 4:30 in the morning. But
big gaping maw.
Yeah. Upon watching it on a big screen TV, I think it was sort of something akin to a dinosaur style turtle.
I tried to yesterday. I tried to look up sort of like sea creatures of Star Wars, and then it's like sea creatures of Kamino, and there was some kind of like eel that came up that I thought maybe, but this thing clearly has like fins, like flippers.
Yeah. I noticed a hard shell on it too, a big hard shell on its back.
I think the best thing that I can equate it to is sort of the Mosasaurus, sort of as it was pictured in the Jurassic Park film. So yeah, I definitely give it a dinosaur quality. The unnamed creature is reminiscent of a prehistoric Mosasaurus, and the batch make a run for it. And man, I giggled at this scene because it reminded me of Scooby-Doo as they're like running from the ghosts. All right.
As they're running, though, Omega trips, and we get another nod to a Jurassic Park.
We do, and it kind of looks like this one.
Yeah, it mirrors the...
Smacks her face into the glass, and as it's cracking underneath her.
Yep.
All right. Outside, the sea creature keeps pace with the batch, following them down the length of the tunnel until the tunnel turns upward at a 90-degree elbow. With the batch now out of sight, the sea creature strikes the tunnel, clamping down with its powerful jaws, causing more water to pour in. At this point, AZ3 finds a scomp port and is able to jack in and frantically tries to restore what power there is to the tunnel. Suddenly, the tunnel lights up, and with what little power is left, the sea creature is shocked at the mouth, causing it to let go, and it slinks away into the deep. And that's probably the best look we're going to get at the thing. So with the sea creature no longer posing a threat, the batch turned their attention back to climbing out of the tunnel. And this is where I say, like, this whole power thing, as you say, it's a plot device, because they climb through that irising hatch that just opened. I'm like, wait a minute. And they pulled themselves up out of the tunnel, and Hunter asks, what is this place? And Tech explains that it is, in fact, Nala Se's private lab. He then goes on to relay to the group that, according to Omega, this is where the Batch's mutations were enhanced. And when Crosshair questions, how would she know that? Tech responds, because she was there. Fully revealing that Omega was, in fact, created before them and is technically older than they are. I kind of got sort of like, huh? Because I'm like, where was Hunter last episode when they were there?
He was shackles.
He was, wasn't he? Yeah. So he needed, it's for his benefit.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, hell, we already know that. Yeah. And I'm surprised that they waited until now to tell him that. But it makes sense, from a visual standpoint anyway.
I'm not so upset with them doubling down on that in terms of that. When you put it that way, it is all new information to Hunter. So it
is for him. Yeah.
And in the grand scheme of things, it's only been like minutes since they were over on the cloning platform.
That's true. Yeah. Robots. That's super true. Mm-hmm. Surveying the lab, the batch find the exit to the tunnel leading back to the surface, only to discover that the tunnel is destroyed. So as the clones search the lab for any means of escape, Omega notices that AZ3's head is beginning to droop. Asking him what's wrong, the little droid apologizes, stating that his power cell is depleting. And that's important. That's a huge plot point going forward here, because that, again, time is of the essence, and so is his power. Mm-hmm. At this point, Echo reports that long-range communications are down, and their oxygen supply will be gone in just a couple of hours. And of course, Crosshair, who can't help himself, can't help but pick the low-hanging fruit here, shoots a sideways glance at Omega and exclaims that this is what happens when you let a kid call the shots. And it was a hard one to get because it's a panning shot with the camera, but there's a moment there where they're both in frame. And I mean, like, he's shooting daggers at her, and she's got this, like, totally sheepish, like, huh? Like, what?
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's her moment of going, oh, well, is it my fault? Like a child that whole life of filters to put on top of that. So you
right.
If you tell them it's raining because God is angry at you, that's what they're going to believe.
Right. So it's Hunter here that quickly points out that the kid just saved your life, unlike the Empire that left you for dead. Crosshair says, that's your problem, Hunter. You take everything too personally.
And I mean, that could be a defense mechanism.
Yeah, very much so.
Right.
Again, though, it's part of that whole, my God, these two just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Mm-hmm. 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 When Hunter points out that the Empire destroyed an entire city, Crosshair dismisses it as the Empire did what had to be done, adding that the Empire is going to control the entire galaxy, and he's going to be part of it.
Yeah, that's the line.
That is. Crosshair asserts to Hunter, you've made the wrong choice. But Hunter retorts, don't fool yourself. All you'll ever be to them is a number. Absolutely. And it's not like they're not already numbered.
Mm-hmm.
CT 9904.
That's right.
All right. Crosshair walks away from Hunter and sits down in front of a large window, kind of head in his hands. And this is, again, he has the emotional outburst and then immediately beats himself up internally over it. Sitting down in front of a large window, Omega tries to talk to him and Crosshair tells her to go away. She holds her ground figuratively, if not literally at this point. And she ends up trying to talk to him. She says that she understands, having spent most of her life here in the lab alone, that is, until Clone Force 99 was created. And she says that that's why she was determined to find them again. Crosshair jibes at Omega that being a clone does not make her one of them. And in what might be one of the biggest reality checks of the entire season, Omega responds that she wanted to believe it was the inhibitor chip that made him the way he was, and that she was wrong. It's a big moment for her, right? To come to that conclusion, to go, I believed in you.
You are a jerk.
Yeah.
Tech was right.
It's true. So, having taken stock of what resources that they have left, the batch come to the conclusion that the only way out is to use the empty medical capsules like mini escape pods and float their way out. But with no directional control and a large debris field just outside, there's no guarantee that they'll make it safely to the surface. But it's Crosshair who now pipes up and says, the droid can do it. Hunter asks AZ-3 if he can guide the capsules to the surface. And the droid replies that barring any extraneous complications, I should be able to complete the task. Omega questions him about the dangers involved, but AZ assures her that her safety and well-being is his primary mission objectives. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool, that little droid adhering to his primary programming, and it just happens to fall in line with where they're at. So with the plan in place, the brothers set about to collect and position the empty cloning tubes while Omega sets explosive charges against the window. And then with AZ's power and time running short, the plan is set in motion and the charges are detonated, blowing out the glass.
And it's Omega who pulls the trigger.
She does, yeah.
That's awesome.
So talk about reuse of animation assets. The detonator is the same animation model as the comlink.
Yeah.
with a button.
Can we talk a minute about their placement in the tubes? I know we talked briefly.
Yeah, of course we can. Yeah.
I thought it was very strange from, it's not, I guess you could say it's a writing perspective, but as a character perspective, I think it's very strange that Hunter goes with Crosshair in the same tube and Omega goes solo. I understand that it's
serves
further down the line, there's repercussions of that, and they serve the story and move the plot forward in a dramatic fashion. But it's completely out of character for Hunter, and especially because he has lost her and just got her back, and that weird hug we talked about. It's completely out of character for
the
Hunter.
whole.
And I know your explanation before was maybe he wants to keep an eye on Crosshair, but I don't.
Yeah, I think so.
Is that Trump? Is that his way of keeping her safe? It still feels out of character for him.
It does to me as well. I'm trying to shoehorn it into something that's conceivable and believable, and maybe that's sort of it's the same space I was in. I don't want to bring this up, but it's the same space I was in with the Last Jedi, where like all the criticisms leveled at that, I kind of wrestled with them and kind of in my own headspace kind of rationalized why it worked the way it does. And unfortunately for me, it's the same way in this episode too. Like my rationalization is, he's just keeping, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. I'm going to look after you because if you're with me, then the rest of them have a better chance at,
right.
if something goes,
if he's by himself.
Right.
By himself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, here, let me add to that. For the last 3 episodes,
sure,
we've seen them treat Omega as proper backup.
Yep.
Full on footing with the team, and it's continuing here.
That's true.
No, it really is.
Because not only did they give her the detonator, they rely that you're going to get out.
Right.
Get out.
Yeah.
And it sets up her hero moment. So
it does.
Yeah. I guess it really does. Although, if anything, I can understand Hunter keeping Crosshair with him, but here's the thing that I did. And again, this is, plot armor and it serves the story, but it's like, if you're going to keep Crosshair with you, Hunter, why do you have his rifle on your backpack? Throughout the whole time, he's carrying Crosshair's sniper rifle.
Because he picked it last episode.
Why wouldn't you handed it off to somebody else so that if you want him disarmed, truly disarmed, give it to somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, ostensibly Wrecker could carry all of
That's
them.
What I mean. Yeah, all at the same time.
Yeah.
And has. All right.
But he goes out of his way to say these tubes are too small.
Oh, I know. He's having a hard time shoehorning himself into one.
And they're like, oh, at least you don't have to double up.
Double up, right. All right, so water quickly fills the lab, and AZ deftly guides the tubes out into the debris field. Flitting between the capsules, AZ is able to guide each one between the falling debris. But then he's struck and momentarily stunned by a large piece of metal, finally regaining his composure after he has a little moment where his sort of power kind of fluctuates and his eyes kind of in and out. He sees that the piece of metal has now hit Omega's tube, and it's now sinking back to the ocean floor.
Get the impression that these aren't terribly deep seas.
No, I kind of got that too. It's either that or the city structure, because I mean it's such a pullback shot, right? We don't really get we still don't really have an accurate sort of impression of how big that city is, but I suspect that the rate of descent was pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, at the same time, so he's going now after Omega, but at the same time, the other 4 tubes containing the brothers breach the surface. Burning wreckage floats about them, and one by one, they open the tubes and begin to search for Omega. Having caught up with her, AZ3 uses his welder to cut the metal away, freeing Omega's tube. But as he pushes it toward the surface, the light of his eyes begins to fade, and he runs out of power. And he lets go of the tube and starts to fall back towards the bottom. Watching in horror as AZ drifts away, Omega radios in that she's going after him. Taking a deep breath, she blows the hatch off her tube and she swims after the droid. Meanwhile, on the surface, a frantic Hunter removes his helmet, scanning the water for Omega's tube. Further below, Omega is able to grab hold of AZ, but it looks like the weight of the droid is too much for her to carry, and she can't really gain any altitude or get back to the surface. She's kind of holding her own there, but she's slowly kind of sinking back because he just weighs too much.
Mm-hmm.
Not seeing Omega's capsule breach the surface, Hunter decides he's going in after her. But the moment is fleeting as Crosshair has retrieved his rifle and is now taking aim at the back of Hunter's head. And I mean, he's got him dead to rights here. Yeah. And we get this moment where like, hey, this could be the end here. Because I honestly kept expecting someone was going to die. Well, and I thought, well, this is one of the, you want to have a major impact. This is one to do it.
But yeah. Omega down there, she's drowning. And
that's true.
The animation, like she's got the twitch.
Yeah, she's starting to fight that when you're holding your breath underwater and you did that when you were a kid, like how long can you hold your breath? And then you're as you're trying to keep your mouth shut. With Hunter dead to rights in his scope, Crosshair aims off and instead fires a grapple, attaching itself to AZ's chest, and he ends up pulling them both to the surface. Crosshair then surrenders the rifle to Wrecker and then sits down in the floating medical capsule and it's almost like he's sulking, really, just as Tech exclaims that he's got a visual on the Marauder. So once again,
he's presented with a choice, and
I do something, I almost killed him, then I saved him, and now I'm again conflicted about it.
But he's starting his redemption with saving a kid.
Yeah, so this is where I'm like, okay, they really are going to go the distance with this character, and they are going to try to redeem him. All right, so having survived the destruction of Topoka City, the Bad Batch begin paddling their way through the burning wreckage, and by the morning, They've reached the last remaining landing pad on Kamino, which is a little bit bizarre considering that the descriptive audio here says that they paddled sort of through the night, which really contrasts with Tech saying, I've got a visual on the Marauder. You do?
Yeah, but
you
can see it paddling.
Maybe through his binoculars, though.
I guess so.
Thermos.
And we know that those are really good binoculars.
They are. Can they see miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and miles away?
Maybe. Here's the thing. This is strange for me.
Yeah.
Well, you know, on an open ocean, you could see miles and miles and miles.
That is
miles
true.
Away.
That is true. Hence, no smoking on the deck at night.
Yeah. Why is it sunny?
Yeah, we've never seen Kamino with this kind of before.
Thematically very strange. We've only ever seen Kamino as a crazy, tumultuous rainstorm, electrical storms, complete cloud cover, and then always at night as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is it at night though, or is it just it's that dark all the time?
Right. That's a great question. Yeah. But so for me, this symbolically here, we're getting a weird, I'm getting a weird vibe off this. Now that the Empire has cleansed the planet of the cloning technology and the Kaminoans, the sun is coming out. Isn't that a friggin' weird message, man?
That's creepy.
It's creepy.
Yeah, it is.
It is disturbing to me. Yeah. And I don't know if it's subtle or if
I looked at it like maybe that the storm is just like a roving thing, like how
like a big superstorm that just it never goes away, but it just moves around,
rotates the world. Like,
that's entirely possible.
Dark side of the moon becomes 200 degrees below, and it just rotates.
I get it. You know, that's entirely possible. And just coincidentally, every time we've been there, it just happened to be over
nighttime. Yeah.
I like that plot armor. That works for me.
I guess it's better than the dark side of the force going, oh, you've done good.
something dark side. Okay. Standing atop of the pad, Omega and the Bad Batch stop to look at the cloud of black smoke off in the distance and the fleeting evidence that there ever was a city there.
Maybe it's to set up this because you couldn't see that at night, probably.
There is. You know what? If nothing else, for sure, so we can actually appreciate the destruction that's just happened. Because I mean, I don't know. I wish I had a shot from last week when they're standing there and they're looking. We can use the tube to get to Tapoka City, and you see, you do get a sense of like there's a big city over there, and now that it's gone, it's like, do you even remember what it looked like in that frame? Because it's pretty much the same framing.
Mm-hmm. Two things while we hold on this picture, you can see. Oh, yeah, sure. You can see the other city possibly way off in the background there.
I questioned if that was another. Andy had said the same thing to me, and I questioned if that's another city or me.
It's the lightness of the smoke coming from that, and the same sort of shape.
Right.
Depth of field thing for me that tells me that that's so far in the back. It's almost on the horizon.
Now that you say it that way, yeah.
And then the other thing about this scene is, we got a visual on the Marauder because we can see the city from the Marauder. Why couldn't we see the Marauder?
Yeah. I don't know, dark, burning wreckage, smoke, ash.
Well, no, it's true. It's true. But if it was daylight and that city were lit up, and you would see it. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying they are within visual distance.
Yeah.
If we're gonna poke holes, but then the thermal binoculars completely seal the deal.
So the moment is it's a somber moment for everyone, but more particularly for Omega, who I mean, look at that, the pain in her eyes there. And I mean, the descriptive audio guy actually went so far as to say that she's crying. I mean, I didn't see tears from her, but I certainly accept that she's really broken up about this.
Let's also hold on this screenshot for a minute too. Yep. Sorry again for the folks.
Not at all.
I'll try to describe it. The only two people looking at the city out of the five are Crosshair and Omega. Everybody else is on task. Let's get out of here.
Oh yeah.
All the other characters, the only ones looking at that city in any kind of introspective or forlorn way are Crosshair and Omega.
If you go back and you watch this scene, Crosshair kind of noticed that because he's standing a little further back than everybody, and so again he's off by himself.
That's right.
Even though he's in the frame, I mean, he's further back, and if you watch him, he really he looks away and he turns his head off like he's just in his own thoughts once again.
Yeah.
At this point, Tech cautions that they should leave before Imperial scouts show up. Turning to Crosshair, Wrecker says, "Are you coming?" And it's that same, tone that he used back in the tunnel when he said, we would have taken you.
There was one more dad moment for Hunter here.
Yeah.
When they're climbing up out of the hole.
Yeah.
Hunter leans down and picks her up and pulls her on to the
right,
very father to child like.
Yeah. There's the thing I was talking about with look at the way Wrecker's cradling Hazy.
Yeah. That is sleeping baby.
So with Wrecker, he's like, "Are you coming?" And Crosshair, he refuses, saying that nothing has changed and that he's made his decision. So with Crosshair having made up his mind, Hunter tells him, "We may want different things, but that doesn't mean that we have to be enemies." Which is interesting because last week didn't Crosshair say, "Don't become my enemy."
Right. And are they still? Are they? Is that still up for discussion? Because
I guess, yeah.
Otherwise, they're killing each other on the platform.
Yeah.
Because Hunter said last week, we never were.
That's right.
We never were your enemy.
It's almost like there's I don't want to say a reconciliation. I suppose there is a reconciliation to some degree where it's like the characters individually are coming to terms with this is the new reality going forward, that maybe they are enemies. So with that, the brothers begin boarding the Havoc Marauder until just Crosshair and Omega remain standing on the platform. Omega takes one last look at the burning remains of Tapoka City, and she turns around and begins to run towards the ship. But before she gets there to the boarding ramp, she actually turns back toward Crosshair and she thanks him for saving AZ3. And Crosshair just coldly says, "Consider us even." Omega turns to walk away, but then she stops and she turns back. Full of sorrow, she tells him, "You're still their brother, Crosshair. You're my brother too." And although he flinches, Crosshair doesn't turn to look at her. Yeah, super powerful moment there. For her to, despite everything that's happened, and even in this episode, she's told him, "I thought it was the inhibitor chip, but I was wrong." She's still holding out for him,
Yeah, I've maintained the whole time that if there was going to be a redemption arc, that she would be the gateway.
Yeah,
it's her.
Yeah,
it's her, like
absolutely.
almost crystal clear Buddha nature. Her innocence, but coupled with optimism and all these other things that a child has.
No, I agree. And I can't help but feel like as we get this shot of the Havoc Marauder pulling away, leaving Crosshair standing on the platform, that we are probably departing Kamino for what is likely the last time. Like we're probably never going back here in the new Star Wars canon, at least not in the course of this show.
No,
maybe.
Do you think?
Well, now that you say that, Andy, that Nala Se's lab is still under the water intact.
Yes.
Well, that brings up the point I made from last week. Did all the technology get taken away, and like what did survive? And
ostensibly, you don't need the tech if you have the scientist.
I
guess. Technically, the lab is no longer intact.
They blew the window out.
They did blow the window out.
Good point. Yeah,
is any of that water salvageable?
Maybe.
I don't know.
So you could. It makes really good role playing game fodder. We could all return there in a role playing game to try to dive for Nala Se's lab to find that one little piece of information that sets us on an adventure. I'm game for that, and in terms of that, I wouldn't mind exploring the planet post Empire. Maybe after the Empire, the Kaminoans come back.
Who knows?
Well, in the same fashion as in Rise of Skywalker, where they have to return to the Death Star.
Right.
And look for that Sith Wayfinder.
Oh, right.
Maybe Omega has knowledge of something that's hiding in the wreckage.
Right. We've got to
doesn't matter now, but
we could use an ancient knife that points to a possible future too. It makes complete sense.
That's got a built-in compass.
That's what I gotta write. Just while we're on that subject, why that wasn't the knife, the blade of Mortis, that ball was dropped.
I don't know. So we get this cool transition. We get a wipe shot here, which is pretty pretty prevalent across all of Star Wars. And we get a shot of a forested world that we've never seen before. In another part of the galaxy, an Imperial shuttle under fighter escort comes in to land at a mountain installation on an unknown forested planet. And I mean, you can see the other mountains sort of in the background. Certainly the one on the left looks to have the same sort of ridges cut into it.
They have terraformed the crap out of that thing.
This is a huge installation if this is all part of the same.
And I don't know why. Maybe it's just Star Wars and the idea that the interiors are so immense and we have Death Stars and I get the impression that they just didn't cut swaths into the mountain and put some I get the impression that those mountains are empty and that there's an entire base inside that.
I get the same impression as well. I mean, how did you keep when you're doing this sort of stuff on the down low, how do you do it? You've got to, how do you conceal that stuff from the galaxy at large?
And I also got big Kashyyyk vibes.
I got another vibe, and I'm going to bring it up after in the post episode discussion, because it could be pretty exciting, or it could be nothing. But my headcanon has already gone and connected some dots, and Andy and I had a discussion about this yesterday that is really like, oh my. So as the shuttle lands, a squad of Republic commandos, I guess I should technically say a squad of Imperial commandos, is there to meet it, showing that there's still quite a few commandos left. More commandos in this than there ever has been before.
And they have the gray paint of the Kamino, clone troopers.
The shoulder, yeah. As the boarding ramp drops, we see that it's Nala Se, and she's under the guard of two more Imperial commandos. Stepping off the shuttle, she's greeted by a dark-haired medical officer, another new character that we've never seen before, and to point out, she's wearing the same uniform as Dr. Pershing in The Mandalorian. It's a human woman we've never seen before, and she greets Nala Se, telling her, "We're all admirers of your scientific talent. The Empire has big things planned for you."
Not looking a lot unlike Tech, actually.
You're right, with the big googly goggly.
Right, and kind of like.
All right, so with no choice, Nala Se acquiesces and follows the woman into the Imperial facility. The episode ends with a long shot of the Imperial shuttle sitting on the landing platform, and then with a few kind of tense musical notes, it's a straight cut to black, and the episode, and indeed season 1 of the Bad Batch, comes to an end.
Yes, it does.
All right, now I'm going to go back up to this image for a minute, because this is, for me, this is probably the biggest thing, the biggest like what of the episode is this shot right here. So last week we talked about where did the technology go, and we talked about Legends and how the Emperor had a world where he sequestered all of the fancy tech, like the Sun Crusher and all that stuff, and including cloning technology.
Right. Is
this Exegol?
Maybe.
Is this Exegol? And I know Exegol does not look like this in Rise of Skywalker, but Andy, you made an exceptionally valid point.
This is how many, like what?
20 to 30 years? It's about 30 prior? Years, yeah.
What does it take to strip a planet of its resources,
of all of its resources,
turn it into a barren wasteland?
And to me, that's a complete jaw-dropping, like, oh my God, the monolithic nature of that, those mountains. And then I thought, I mean, yeah, the monolith in Rise of Skywalker is kind of, it's inverted and it's wider at the top than it is at the bottom. But it absolutely, it says this is a complete possibility that this may in fact be Exegol. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what tidbits we get out of this going forward.
I had a thought. What planet do we find Joris Kaboth on in Heir to the Empire?
Oh my lord! I don't even know.
Because he's guarding his secret military cloning facility.
Right.
And we could be so close to Thrawn now. It's not funny, bro.
That is also a possibility. Yeah,
I want to check. I'm gonna look into that for after. I can't remember the name of the planet that they find him on. They send Luke goes there to find him, right?
Yeah. Now that you mentioned, I don't remember it either. It's been a long time since I've read that book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the episode, and that's the season. Like you say, I think this episode works better. Probably would work better if you were watching it sort of concurrently with part one.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, Andy, yesterday, this episode felt like this could have been the first episode of season 2.
Yeah.
Last episode was so dramatic and so.
Yeah.
I like it better after we talked about it.
I do too. I always find that the discussion around the episode adds more depth, and so I'm able to take a more measured look at sort of what it is.
Mm.
Last week we talked about what's one plot point, unresolved plot point we'd like to see resolved in the finale, and sad to report that we got nothing.
Nothing.
We got nothing.
0 Boba Fett's.
So every dangling plot thread across season 1 is still dangling.
It's
but that's
true.
okay. That's okay though.
And to drill in on the one thought of how did they build this and keep it on the down low?
Yep.
Building into the planet's, existing terrain.
Yeah, underground.
So from space, you're not going to see that much.
No, you wouldn't. It worked for the it's an oversimplification, but it worked for the Alliance on Yavin 4. I mean, there's pre-existing infrastructure in the Masase Temple, and as long as you keep your footprint minimal and you don't park every ship you own outside, hey, it's just an abandoned temple.
There's a lot of Imperial facilities we've seen over the course of everything. They're all built into stuff.
They are, and they certainly didn't go out of their way. Well, by that time it's the First Order, but I think of Starkiller Base. We didn't go out of our way to hide that.
No,
as we cut a giant canyon into the equator of the planet.
Yep.
That planet I was talking about is called Wayland.
Wayland.
That's right. They call it the Emperor's Secret Toy Box.
That's what I was trying to. Yeah. So that's the planet I was trying to describe last week with all the secret tech. Yes, and there is cloning. There is a cloning chamber there.
All kinds of dark side craziness going on.
Yeah. So that would be an interesting. We know that Filoni and company, as we've said many times before, are mining the best parts of the EU and pulling them forward. So maybe it's Wayland.
It's a perfect trajectory to bring Thrawn into the fold, and Thrawn is one of the major players in all of the Filoni, stuff. So it's not a huge
he really is
for it to be Wayland.
But again, the analogy is Exegol the canonical version of Wayland on some level. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
I don't know. It could be 50-50 for me, really.
Yeah. But the only other thing going against it, because they needed the Sith Wayfinder to get there, and it was quite the journey to get through all that stuff.
That's true.
That's not exactly.
Here's another thing from in the comics. Actually, it just occurred to me. In the comics, Darth Vader goes there a few months after the Empire is formed
to Exegol.
Yeah, and it's already like that. He has to fight the Eye of Agamotto or whatever the frig it's called, and he has to go through the crazy Rishi Maze wormhole thing and fly using the Force like Kylo Ren does. And then he has to and then he defeats a beast there that Kylo Ren, because that beast is defeated, Kylo Ren doesn't have to face it when he walks on the surface. But everything, like the cloning lab, like Luke's hand, it's all already in place. So I would say that. So we can
just abandon
the write it off. I don't know. But there's worse things. We saw in The Mandalorian what they were doing to a planet in midstream.
So true. True.
Could be that planet too.
What planet
were we on there?
Wait, the planet where they're starting to
terraform.
Right. Oh, sorry. It's Jedi Fallen Empire where we see the early days of Starkiller Base, where they're starting to put the trench. But you're right.
With the Magistrate. The episode with the Magistrate in Ahsoka.
Oh, right, because the factory, the smog belching factory, Oh my Lord. I can't think of that place, but I know the episode. Yeah. We all know the episode.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, so that gives us something to think about.
Well, guys, what do you think? Season's wrapped. Did it end on a high note for you?
Overall, it was a bit of a roller coaster. And knowing that there's going to be another season and knowing that, we had 4 seasons of Rebels, we had 7 seasons of Clone Wars. They always do a long game, especially if they can get derived revenue from something. It certainly was good enough to warrant a second season. Certainly was.
Totally agree with you.
It's pushing the boundaries of what they can do with animation and our little Star Wars universe real far. I dig that. I'm in love with the timeline. I'm in love with the beginning of the Empire and watching it unfold and learning new things that we thought we just took for granted. That, oh, wow, this is completely different.
Me too. I absolutely agree with you there. I've always, like I say, using the role-playing game analogy, this was always the period of galactic history that I set my games in because it's really this dark, unexplored, Wild West kind of.
Anything can happen.
We don't know what's going on. Therefore, I can make anything I want. And now that those holes are being filled in, I'm pretty much, I'm pretty thrilled with how they're handling it and what they're doing. So
I'll give it an 8 out of 10 lightsabers.
Nice. I'll give it season 1 for me gets 8 Kyber crystals out of 10.
Perfect. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that's not the end of things. Although it is the end of the season, it is not the end of the show. So I just want to remind everybody, I want you to put it on your calendars, everybody. Join us here next week, next Saturday, August the, I believe 21st. I wrote it down. Yeah, August the 21st. We're going to go live at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to do a whole retrospective, unscripted, live, just sort of retrospect on the whole season. We hope you guys will join us on Facebook and on YouTube, where you guys can share your thoughts about the season with us, and we'll talk about some highs and lows of the season and all the things we liked and didn't like about it. And as we're fond of doing, we'll speculate on where we think things are going in the future. We hope that you guys will join us.
I may even wear pants.
Just one quick technical point on that is, if you are planning on joining us through Facebook, remember that we do use StreamYard to manage all of our shows. So when you get the link in Facebook, you will have to follow the link to allow StreamYard to see your name for you to post comments. It doesn't mean you can't post comments. If you don't want your name shown, that's fine. You don't have to do that. It'll just show up as a Facebook user.
I'm gonna turn my Instagram streaming on, and I'm going to just point it at the screen so that everybody can, right, so everybody can see. But I'm going to live stream Instagram because we got 600 people over there that dig us. So I'm going to double down on that.
Nice.
So you can check us out there if you want to.
Again, that's it for me. Looking forward to where the show is going. Looking forward to our next future projects, which there are a couple in the works. So, all right, guys. Until next week, that's it for me. All right, I guess I'll take it this week.
You're on duty.
All right. You're on it. So join us next week, my friends. Not the same batch. Well, I guess it will be. Same batch time, same batch channel. That's 11 a.m. on the 21st of August. The First Fandom Power presents the Fan Batch live stream. We'll see you then, guys.
Watch us swear more than normal.
Bye for now, everybody.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to Fandom Power. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll be talking about another one of your favorite fandoms. Fandom Power is a Sawcast production.